Mookie Betts has played 3 different positions for the Dodgers the last 2 years. He probably won't play a brand new one, but he will play a different position next year than he did at the end of this year. We'll talk about that. We'll also talk about one possibility to replace him in the outfield, and we will look back 1 week later at the Dodgers, being the World Series champions. Let's get live on Locked On Dodgers.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Dodger fans, this is Locked On Dodgers, a podcast about the World Series champion Locked On Dodgers. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks to our everydayers for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning. And thanks to those of you who are with us live here on Wednesday evening. Remember, this show is free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube simply by searching for Locked On Dodgers. So please subscribe wherever you're watching or listening right now. If this is your first time with us, my name is Jeff Snyder. That guy next to me is Vince Semperio. Vince and I are both lifelong Dodger fans, just like a lot of you. We've also both spent time covering the Dodgers in the press box and the locker room over the last decade. So we bring you the smart fans perspective on our boys in blue every weekday morning. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. And I don't know what people will be buying tickets to. Baseball season's over. I guess there's other sports going on, but baseball season ended a week ago when the Dodgers won the World Series. I don't know if you heard about that, Vince. It was kind of big news at the time.
I did hear about that. There's been a lot of talk about the Dodgers. The Dodgers have been hot, man. The last week they've been everywhere, and they've had people lining up to meet them 12 hours or no, like 15 hours before the store even opened. So pretty intense.
Yeah, Dodger fans have a lot to be excited about right now. Dodger players have had some interesting comments. We're going to get to some of those in the third segment today, the final segment, talking about Joe Kelly, Miguel Rojas, some of their thoughts as we look back on the World Series. The general manager meetings are going on right now, and Dodgers GM Brandon Gomes met with the media and talked about a couple things we're going to talk about here. In the middle segment, we are going to talk about the potential of Juan Soto, his free agency, all of that stuff. But Gomes, maybe the biggest news, I guess first we'll talk about the bit that wasn't news. He said they haven't had extension talks with Dave Roberts really yet, but he sees him being the Dodgers managers for as far out as they can see, which is not a surprise to anybody, I don't think.
No, I mean, it was solidified when they won the World Series, our Dave Roberts. At this point, barring some wild turnaround, maybe is here as long as he wants to keep managing.
Yeah, the Dodgers of old, that from Walter Alston to Tommy Lasorda, that was pushing 50 years where it was just the two managers, and they both left because they chose to leave because they were, old men. Tommy Lasorda had health issues. Walter Alston, I assume, probably did too. Definitely was getting old for the job. And Dave Roberts could get that treatment and could get hey, stick around for as long as possible because the Dodgers are going to keep putting out competitive teams for him, putting together competitive rosters. And, if he wins a World Series every 3 or 4 years, it's hard as fans to really be upset about that. And, I know we'd be thrilled about that. And obviously in the moment, there would absolutely be people saying fire Dave Roberts next October if the Dodgers don't win the World Series. I get that. But realistically, Dave Roberts wasn't going to get fired this year, even if they had lost to the Padres in the NLDS. But like you said, winning the World Series solidified that. And he's on track to be a Hall of Fame manager. So he's going to hopefully do that all in a Dodger uniform. The EB said this the other day. I just saw in the comments, really, really not high on Dave Roberts. Thinks that all that 2024 did was make up for 2019. Winning a World Series is hard. Dave Roberts has proven that he is very good at the parts of managing that don't happen on the field, and is, he was amazing at the other parts this postseason. But the other big news, the actual news from the GM meetings, was Gomes confirming that Mookie Betts will be moving back to the infield in 2025. Didn't say which position. He mentioned both second base and shortstop as possibilities. seems like second base is the most likely option just because that's where they wanted him in 2024. He moved to shortstop out of necessity because the Dodgers needed a shortstop. And then when he got hurt, he came back and they just moved him back to right field. Second base seems like Mookie's long-term home, doesn't it?
Yeah, it was supposed to be his home this year. A lot of different things happened to push him back to right field. And, it wasn't quite the right field that we saw in the 2020 playoffs when he was making all these, crazy plays and robbing home runs and all that type of stuff. And, didn't really get to show off the arm too much. So I understand why people want him to stay in right field because that, from what we've seen, that's been his best defensive position, even though at second base he was pretty solid and didn't really have issues that were glaring. Shortstop, obviously a little bit different story. There were a little bit of some issues there, which maybe would have got better as the year went on if he would have stayed there, but maybe not. We're not sure. Definitely, wore on him a little bit, having to put in so much time and effort through the whole course of a 162 game season, putting in 2-3 hours of work ahead of every game, just working at shortstop. I'm sure would have wore on him eventually. So it all worked out. But yeah, for the Dodgers, you're trying to keep Mookie Betts as fresh and as healthy and as light on his feet as you can through the rest of his contract, and that would not require him, but that would be best for him to play second base.
Yeah, honestly, I think Mookie at second base is. I think second base is his best defensive position. I think at this point in his career, he's better at second base even than he is in right field. I think he's still a good right fielder. I don't think he's an elite right fielder anymore. I think he's good. I think he is a very good second baseman, and playing there regularly could be elite. I think he could be a Gold Glover at second base. I think that position makes a ton of sense for him. The other reason that it makes sense to move him out of right field is because they already have, they have Andy Pages under contract who right field is his only good defensive position. They have Teoscar Hernandez hopefully coming back. Right field is his only good defensive position. And throw in the guy we're going to talk about in the next segment as a possibility, that it's just a lot easier to find a solid right fielder than a really good second baseman, which is what Mookie Betts is. And if it does take some of the wear off of his body too, he's probably a better hitter as a second baseman than as a right fielder or a shortstop too. And, offense from second base is more valuable than offense from right field. Again, because right fielders are easier to replace. And so, yeah, for me, it's just a no-brainer. The question becomes, what about Gavin Lux? Because either you go back to the Gavin Lux at shortstop experiment, and maybe they do try to do that this offseason, see what they can do, because the fact is he was coming off surgery when, last spring when he was terrible at shortstop. We don't know what he could do at shortstop, but also, there's Willy Adames, there's Tommy Edman, they have Miguel Rojas, who can be obviously a good backup. I don't know. Do you think Mookie moving back to the infield spells the end of Gavin Lux's Dodgers time?
Yeah, I mean, realistically, Lux, there was a 2-month stretch where maybe Lux was a really, really good hitter this year. And, there was the whole first half of the season, he was not. Maybe the last months, 5-6 weeks or so, he was, back to not a great hitter. In the postseason, he had good moments, but wasn't necessarily a good hitter. He did get, some clutch walks. He did have the game tying sac fly in Game 5 of the World Series. Like, there was moments that he had, but realistically, I think you've taken Lux as far as you can in the sense of guaranteed a spot on the roster. Well, not on the roster, but guaranteed a starting spot. And if he's not a starter, I don't know how much value he has off the bench when they already have other guys, or can re-sign other guys that give them a little bit more flexibility.
Yeah, I think that's probably true, which is a bummer. I like Gavin Lux. Obviously the Dodgers, there's some sentimental value in everything, but their main goal is to put together the best team possible. And, we'll have to see as they get into free agency, see if they really are interested in Willy Adames, all those things. They could try Lux at short, knowing that you have both Edman and Rojas as fallback options. But I don't know about that. So We're going to come back in a minute. We're going to talk about a potential replacement for Mookie Betts in right field. His name is Juan Soto. So please keep it locked on Dodgers. This episode is brought to you by Robinhood. With Robinhood Gold, you don't need a silver spoon to eat up the financial favors of the 1%. Robinhood Gold allows others to get the rates and perks usually reserved for the high society. Now, the resourceful individual with Robinhood Gold can earn the very liberal rate of 4.5% APY on uninvested cash and be rewarded with a handsome 3% retirement boost on an IRA account. Robinhood Gold provides the privileges of a high net worth for any net worth. These generous benefits are now available for only $5 a month. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. Sign up at robinhood.com/gold. Terms apply. For product-specific disclosures, visit robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risks. Rate may change. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold, LLC. This episode is also brought to you by Arena Club. For most of us that like collecting cards, the idea of spending $2,000 or more on a Patrick Mahomes rookie card or something like that just isn't in the cards. I love collecting, but that's some serious money to drop. Thanks to slab packs from arenaclub.com, now it's possible to score gem mints for a fraction of their retail price. Every card that I listed was a hit from last week's Arena Club slab pack drop. Arena Club is the only repack that provides real value, a complete view of all possible cards, and clear hit rates for each one. Arena Club slab packs are revolutionizing the repack game with transparency. After your pulls are revealed, they'll immediately be placed in your showroom for safekeeping, selling, trading, or auction. The Arena Club grading process is accurate, fast, and transparent, with a full grade rationale provided and explanation of how your card was scored. Whether you're buying, selling, trading, or displaying, Arena Club is the card collecting platform you have to check out. And right now you can get 10% off your first slab pack or card purchase by going to arenaclub.com/lockedonmlb and use code LockedOnMLB. That's arenaclub.com/lockedonmlb, code LockedOnMLB for 10% off your first purchase. We are back. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning. Thanks to our everydayers. If you're not an everydayer, it's easy to become one. Just watch or listen every weekday morning. As we've mentioned, we will be doing episodes 5 days a week, even in the off season. Plenty to talk about with, Shohei Ohtani winning his MVP award later this month. Maybe some Silver Sluggers coming up. Dave Roberts maybe being a finalist for Manager of the Year. And of course, free agency, all that stuff. We will be here. You can also go beyond the podcast and become a Locked On Dodgers insider by going to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers. You can also check out Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Sports Los Angeles over on YouTube. And for your second listen, check out Locked On MLB, hosted by our buddy Paul Francis Sullivan, a.k.a. Sully. And that brings us to our discussion. There's a lot of free agents out there who the Dodgers might be interested in, might be linked to, whether they're interested or not. And it's hard to know which category Juan Soto falls into, because we've seen him linked specifically to the Dodgers, that the Dodgers are interested in Juan Soto. That link mostly came from John Heyman, who has a history of being buddy-buddy with Juan Soto's agent, Scott Boras. John Heyman has been accused, and not without evidence, of basically running PR for the Boras Corp. And it makes sense. Scott Boras definitely wants the Dodgers involved in the Juan Soto negotiations, because the Dodgers have a crap load of money. And if you have the Dodgers, Mets, and Yankees all involved in the Juan Soto negotiations, that maximizes the chances of Scott Boras getting Juan Soto the biggest contract possible. So there's plenty of reasons to show why somebody who was just trying to help Scott Boras might float the idea of the Dodgers being interested. But there's also plenty of reasons the Dodgers might actually be interested in Juan Soto,
Yeah, I think it was the initial report was the Dodgers are interested if Juan Soto's interested. So, a little bit of a hedge in a sense, but that makes complete sense of how the Dodgers are probably going to pursue Juan Soto. They'll call Scott Boras and they'll say, hey, we're interested in Juan Soto. If he's interested in us, then we'll meet. And, Soto said he'll meet with all 30 teams if he has to, if that's who's interested. And, right now, Heyman kind of named 6 teams. Obviously, Dodgers were one of them, Mets, Yankees, Giants, and somebody else. And then there was a 7th team, apparently the Rays, who have snuck in for random negotiations. I know they were one of the teams mentioned for Freddie Freeman after the Dodgers got him. So kind of interesting to see, them in there. But like I said, for a guy of this talent, of this nature, and for someone who, defensively, he may not have a spot, or you may need to try him at first base, or you may just, if you have a DH spot open, you have a DH spot. But for what he's done so far and the fact that he's so young, it's you're getting a bona fide superstar that's already done multiple things, won a World Series, been to 2 World Series, maybe, had a really good year last year in terms of the power. And it's hard to say that it's not something worth kicking the tires on.
Yeah. And the fact is, Juan Soto is one of the best hitters in baseball, top 5 for sure. And he would absolutely make the Dodgers better offensively, wherever he slotted in, whoever he bumps out of the lineup. If the chain reaction was Gavin Lux being gone, yes, Juan Soto is a significantly better hitter than Gavin Lux. Even at Gavin Lux's peak, what we're hoping for from Gavin Lux, in his 100th percentile results, Juan Soto is still a better hitter than him. Now, Juan Soto is bad defensively, despite the fact that he was a finalist for a Gold Glove this year, because apparently the people who vote on the Gold Glove forgot to watch baseball this year. Soto is bad defensively. That is definitely something to consider. And especially if they bring back Teoscar Hernandez, maybe if they put Teo in right, where Teo has been good defensively. The thing that makes me nervous about that, think, okay, if Teoscar is good in right field, let Soto be bad in left field like Teoscar was last year, and, it's a wash. Thing that makes me nervous about that is my brain can't figure out why somebody would be really good in right field and really bad in left field. I understand center field being harder. I don't understand being good at one corner and bad at the other corner. So it makes me nervous that, maybe Teoscar being good in right field was a mirage, So, and that would be concerning if you had bad outfielders in both corners. That puts a lot of pressure on, Tommy Edman or whoever's in center, especially if it's Andy Pajos, who's bad defensively in center. That could be a debacle, especially, what we're going to talk about in the next segment about how fundamental defense was a big part of why the Dodgers won this World Series. The defense scares me for Soto and limits the value somewhat. I do think long-term, he's 9 years younger than Freddie Freeman. And so, whenever Freddie's done playing, Soto could become the first baseman and probably become an adequate first baseman at least. But yeah, I have a hard time seeing, as much as I love Soto's bat, I have a hard time seeing the Dodgers committing 12 to 15 years to a guy who's already bad on defense, because he's not going to get better in his 30s,
Yeah, I guess it just depends. Where I'm at with Soto is, if the Dodgers get him, I'll be happy. If the Dodgers don't get him, I'll be like, okay, yeah, I didn't really think they would get him anyways. But I guess it's what their long-term thought process is with Ohtani. Like, if you think Ohtani is going to pitch and be your DH the entire 9 years he has left on his contract, then, that limits your not that your views on Soto, but just limits how much you're maybe willing to spend or what you're willing to offer. But if you think, Ohtani might pitch for a few more seasons, might become like a closer type, maybe we're going to try him in the outfield or try him at first base, and then a DH spot would open up. There's different ways to go about it, and they're thinking about all this type of stuff. But ultimately, I do think that if it became a point where Juan Soto said, yeah, I would like to come to the Dodgers if you give me this contract, and the Dodgers like, okay, yeah, that's a contract we would offer you, they're not going to care about anything else at that point.
Yeah, and hitting can make up for a lot. The fact is, if the Yankees had a better offense, they would have had a better chance in the World Series, even despite their lack of fundamentals. And Soto is, even with being bad at defense, he's still an immensely valuable player. I love the bat. It's hard to picture the Dodgers with already having Mookie and Ohtani and Yamamoto under those big long contracts. It's hard to picture them doing another one. I would love to see, hey, how about you come to us 3 years, $200 million, and then hit free agency again at age 29 and get your 10-year contract then, come play with the Dodgers for a couple of years. That they tried that with Bryce Harper. It didn't work. Doesn't mean it won't work with Soto,
Yeah. I don't, Boris will definitely think about in 3 years, there'll be a new CBA and who knows what that'll bring. So I'm going to try to get all the money right now.
Yeah. When does this CBA expire? Maybe 2 years. 2 years, 150 million. Boom. Not my money,
Yeah.
And you know what? We're probably going to talk about Juan Soto a few times because he will continue to be linked to the Dodgers. There may be actual negotiations. There may be just rumors. Maybe we'll hear things from people who aren't lovers in the nighttime with Scott Boras. And, we'll see what happens. But we're going to come back in a minute. We're going to talk about the fact that, I don't know if you heard, the Dodgers won the 2024 World Series. It's been a week. We're going to talk about, some of our thoughts a week later and some thoughts from some Dodger players. So thanks again for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen, and please keep it Locked On Dodgers. This episode is brought to you by Game Time. I love sports. I love concerts. I love comedy shows. The thing they all have in common is buying tickets, and that means the other thing they have in common is you can find the best price on Game Time. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. You also have the option of turning on all-in pricing, which will show you the total prices up front with no surprise fees at checkout. And with the Game Time guarantee, you'll always get the lowest price, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets to your favorite events with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. This episode is also brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. For example, Thursday Night Football. Cincinnati Bengals against the Baltimore Ravens. The Ravens are minus 260 favorites. That sounds like an easy one. Put your $5 bet on the Ravens. Boom, they win. You get your $150 in bonus bets. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. Again, you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. We are back. Thanks again for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen. Thanks for being an everydayer. Please subscribe wherever you're watching and listen right now. Also, please become a Locked On Dodgers insider. We love talking Dodgers with you guys here. We love chatting one-on-one text conversations with our insiders over at joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers. Check out Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Sports Los Angeles on YouTube. And one last thought on Juan Soto that I thought of while I was reading ads, Vince. I've seen some people who don't want Juan Soto because of his attitude. And my thought on that, and I wonder if you agree, I think when Juan Soto was on the Nationals, he was one of the best examples of, wow, that guy just has fun playing baseball, and then I think when he went to the Padres, I think they're the little bit of a, Machado and Profar and Tatis, how they have to have a chip on their shoulder to be competitive. That kind of attitude rubbed off on him. I think Juan Soto being teammates with Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman and Shohei Ohtani and Teoscar Hernandez would just go back to being one of the most joyful players in baseball.
Yeah, to me, it's when he was with the Nationals, obviously he was young. He probably thought he was going to be a National for the rest of his career. And then when he got traded and when he was with the Padres, he probably realized, hey, I'm not probably going to be a Padre for the rest of my career. And he went to the Yankees. If you think, he had attitude there, he's a guy that's focused on the future. Whether that's good or bad remains to be seen. But that's where he was at. And he, like I said, if he signs somewhere for 10, 12, 15 years, I'm sure he's going to be very, very happy.
Yep. So it was a week ago tonight that the Dodgers won the World Series. It doesn't feel like it's been a week. It's also been the longest week of my life. Just personal news. My wife's grandma did finally pass away this morning after, being she was minutes from death for like 4 days. It's a happy time. She lived a long life, and appreciate all of your thoughts on that. But that has totally warped my sense of time because I've just been spending every minute with her the last week since the Dodgers won the World Series. It was kind of crazy tonight to think it's only been a week. But so my wife and I sat down tonight and we turned on the recaps for all 4 games that the Dodgers won and just kind of relived all of those. And one of the things that stuck out to me that we never really talked about, because game 1, I did the episode solo from my rented house after game 1, after Freddie Freeman's grand slam, and Freeman was the talk of the episode. So we never did talk about in the top of the 10th inning, the ground ball that scored the go-ahead run for the Yankees that Tommy Edman smothered, couldn't get a handle on, ended up getting the force out at second. Anthony Rizzo was on first and just stopped running. Like, he might have been safe at second if he doesn't stop running, because Edman had trouble getting the ball to Lux at second base. And if Rizzo's safe there, maybe the Yankees score more. Maybe they don't panic and go to Nestor Cortez if they have a couple run lead. A lot of things could have been different in that situation. And it just kind of underscores something that has come up a lot in the last week, which is that the Yankees are not good at fundamental baseball.
Yeah, I went back and watched it again right now. And I don't know what it was like that. If the ball had been hit to second base, then yeah, there's, you stop.
You don't run into the tag.
You try to make the guy, focus on you instead of throwing to the base or running right into the out. But at shortstop, like, you're running the hard 90 and sliding in second base as hard and as fast as you can. So, I don't give him too much fault on the grounder in game 5. I think that was pretty much all Garrett Cole there in the sense of what you should do as a pitcher. But even him, a guy who's won a World Series, a guy that when I talked to a lot of the Yankee players and during media day, he was one of the guys they went to for advice. And even with all that, whatever it was, and the Dodgers have talked about it. Joel Sherman reported on it. We're going to talk about, Joe Kelly and Miguel Rojas comments now about you kind of can just try to let the Yankees beat themselves. And, it did work out for the Dodgers, I guess.
Yeah. Even the grounder by Mookie that Garrett Cole didn't cover first. If I'm rooting for that team, I need the first baseman to at least sprint and dive for the bag. Even if you don't get the out, at least show that, like, you look at the screenshot, and when Rizzo fielded the ball, he's 15 feet from the bag. Mookie's 60 feet from the bag. And Mookie, like, I know you're slow, Rizzo, but you got to at least put some effort into that. And just, I don't know. But yeah, the Joe Kelly's comments, it's kind of interesting coming from Joe Kelly. Joe Kelly is a talker. Joe Kelly is a pot stirrer. There's other, words with swear words in it that you could describe his attitude about talking about other teams. And he's not afraid to say what he thinks. It is kind of funny. He wasn't even on the World Series roster. But in a way that almost makes it like even this relief pitcher who wasn't on the roster heard the rumblings about these Yankees are really bad at the fundamentals, and we can just let them beat themselves. I wonder if, we even heard the Yankees announcer during the Guardians series saying that's what these Yankees do. They run the bases like drunks. Like, it seems like everybody knew.
Yeah, it was the base running definitely came around in the championship series. I didn't obviously watch the Yankees enough during the regular season to know if this was something, but I think it's just, and without knowing for sure, but kind of watching some people that are Yankee fans, whether it's Locked On Yankees or, one of my favorite things to do in the postseason with the Dodgers playing 2 New York teams was go watch all the John Boy and all the Barstool streams, the clips of the streams when in the game Dodgers won to see all the complaints and everything. But then, kind of now they come up on my For You a little bit more on Twitter and stuff like that. And I think a little bit of like Yankee arrogance. And I think it's not just on the field, but also off the field. Like, oh, we're supposed to be in the World Series because we're the Yankees, or we're supposed to do this, or we're supposed to do that. And they haven't won in 15 years. They've won one in add another 6 years to that, so like 20 some years. They've made it just once in those 15 years since. And yeah, it did seem like whether it's lack of focus, whether they whatever, blah blah blah. The Dodgers can say a lot of things after the fact, and it's always going to look good or look bad for the Yankees. But if this was in the scouting report and that's what was reported, and Rojas didn't have quite as strong as words as Joe Kelly, but he did say that lazy defense and base running and different things like that. Yeah, whatever it is, it's got to be a little bit organizational at this point.
Yeah, and the Dodgers game one, the reason Freddie got a chance to hit that grand slam is because the Dodgers tied up the game late in the game because Shohei Ohtani got to third on what could have been, if Soto plays that ball better, maybe he holds Ohtani to a single or even throws him out at second. If Gleyber Torres puts a little more effort into his defense, he holds Ohtani at second instead of letting him get to third. Instead, he's on third and Mookie hits a sac fly, little things like that. And it made a huge difference when we've seen so many times how one little thing can make a huge difference. And obviously that fifth inning in game 5 was the epitome of it. Even the Yankees, no matter how bad they are, they wouldn't have a repeat of that fifth inning. That just, it's crazy. But it does seem like, obviously the coaching staff has something to do with that. But also I do think that veteran presence that people talk about, like Miguel Rojas puts in the work and sets that example. Mookie Betts, when he was playing shortstop, say what you will about his defense at short, which I believe was better than a lot of people think it was. I don't think he was great, but I think he was solid. But he was definitely putting in the work. And when your guy who, at the time, he was the leading candidate for MVP, and he's putting in hours and hours of work to be the best shortstop he can be, you can't get away with not putting it in, And so, I don't know if it's, I don't know if you wouldn't think the Yankees would be lacking in that leadership when they do have Aaron Judge and Anthony Rizzo and, guys like that who ought to be those leaders. But you wonder if the actual team leaders are setting the example that they need to be or whatever.
Yeah. And, we've had this discussion about the Dodgers in the last couple of years where, the leaders and, Mookie is a lead by example type guy. Freddie's a lead by example type guy. Last year was kind of Hayward and Rojas who became the quote unquote, leaders of the clubhouse. And that's just because they're veterans and a little bit more outspoken. And, when you lose, it's easy to kind of point that way of, leadership or whatever. But, Aaron Judge is similar. I'm sure he's a lead by example type guy. Giancarlo Stanton seems like a lead by example type guy. Even Rizzo, it's, some guys can handle being a leader when they're a veteran, but maybe not as good as they were in the past. And some guys can't. And who knows, Rizzo might have been a guy that guys could come up to and ask questions or ask for World Series advice or whatever. But, maybe he doesn't speak up. And, he was obviously one of the ones that did have a kind of a mental mistake at a big point in a game. So, yeah, overall, I think a lot of it's overshadowed by the Dodgers were a more talented roster in general and a deeper roster for sure. But when you look at specific things like the fifth inning of game 5, it's hard to say was it a fluke? Yeah. Like Judge missing that ball, a fluke. But, Volpe not making that play, not so much a fluke. That was just a tough thing. Kike made it harder on him by the way he ran the bases, which is maybe something the Yankees wouldn't have done. And something that we saw Machado do in the Padres series when he ran in the way of Freddie Freeman, and in that one big inning against Walker Buehler. So, yeah, it does go to show that you do have to work on everything. And, I'm sure the Yankees are going to work on PFPs a lot next spring.
Yeah, and Mookie busting his butt down to first base on a routine ground out that should have ended the inning. Like, you mentioned Machado. Machado did good base run. There's no way Machado beats that to first base. So it's it was the Dodgers. The Yankees
facing the Dodgers, he would have made it.
Maybe, yeah, he does turn into Johnny Hustle when he's facing the Dodgers. Yeah. The Yankees made it easier for the Dodgers, but the Dodgers also capitalized. The fact is, after all the errors were done in that fifth inning, it was still 5-0 Yankees. After all the misplays were done, it was still 5-1 Yankees and 2 outs. It was Freddie Freeman's hit and Teoscar Hernandez's hit that scored those last 4 runs. And so, it's a combination of things. And yeah, but it is, HH said in the chat, it's a game of inches. You could make a pretty good case that the Yankees should have won games 1 and 5, and they didn't win either of them. And that came down to fundamentals for sure.
Yeah. And, now we're here as World Series champions.
Dodgers are World Series champions. Yep. I don't have my new hat yet because they don't make them in my size. So the one site that has hats in my size doesn't have the World Series hats yet. So I am anxiously waiting because this thing is getting old. This is my World Series champion hat from 2020, and it is old and dirty, and I can't wait to get the new one. You got anything else for today, Vince?
Shrink your head, Jeff.
Tell me about it.
No, that's it.
All right. Anyway, so that'll do it for us for today. We'll have one more episode tomorrow for this week. Thank you all for being with us. Thank you for being everydayers. Make sure you subscribe wherever you're watching and listening right now. Go beyond the podcast, become a Locked On Dodgers insider at joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers. Check out Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Sports Los Angeles on YouTube. You can follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at Locked On Dodgers. Vince is on Twitter at VinceSense91. I'm on Twitter at Snydog, and both of our DMs are open there. You can also email us, lockedondodgers@gmail.com, or send us a voicemail or a text message at 323-863-LOCK-5625. We are here every weekday morning. We hope you'll be here with us. When you get in your car or sit on your couch, tell your smart device to play podcast Locked On Dodgers. And remember, you don't have to agree. You just have to listen. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
Have a good one.